You have heard about this. Start now, even with $10 or $15 per month, and it can turn into thousands of dollars. But nobody tells you that compound interest has a hidden floor, a minimum, a point below which it basically does nothing you can actually see. And right now, most people are investing below that point and have absolutely no clue. You have seen those charts. The ones that show a small monthly amount snowballing into hundreds of thousands of dollars over time. You ran the exact same numbers on your own account. You stayed on track. You put money in regularly. You kept your hands off it. And then you checked your balance one day and thought, wait, why does this look nothing like what the chart showed me? That gap between what the numbers promised and what you are actually looking at is not bad luck. It is not a broken system. It is a math problem. And today we are going to go through the real numbers, the actual cutoff points, and why how much you put in every single month matters more than almost any other move you can make, especially in those early years when you are just getting started. Let us get the basics out of the way first. Compound interest is real. It works. It is not some overhyped concept designed to get you excited about investing. But here is the thing the charts never actually show you. Compounding has a size problem. The smaller the amount you start with, the longer it takes before compounding starts doing anything that actually feels real in your life. And feels real is the key phrase here. Because there is a huge difference between something working on paper and something working in a way you can actually feel in your bank account. Here is a simple example to make this real. You drop $50 into an index fund earning an average of 8% per year. After 12 full months, you made $4. That is it. $4. You probably spent more than that on your morning coffee while you were sitting there checking your account. Technically, your money did compound. The math ran correctly. But the result is so tiny, it is basically invisible. And this is exactly where most people go wrong. They hear advice like start small and stay consistent, and they take it to mean that even $10 or $15 a month will eventually make them wealthy. In theory, if everything lines up perfectly and you never touch the money and the market behaves itself for 40 years, maybe. In reality, you could be pushing 90 before a small monthly contribution produces anything you can genuinely feel. The honest truth that almost nobody says directly is this. There is a contribution cutoff, a monthly minimum below which compounding stays invisible for the first 10 to 15 years. And if you are sitting in that invisible zone without understanding what is happening, you quit. You figure the whole thing was hyped up. You pull your money out and move on with your life. That is the real problem. Not that compounding does not work. It absolutely does. But when you are below the cutoff, those early years feel completely pointless. And let us be real, nobody sticks with something that feels pointless for an entire decade. So what is the actual cutoff? Let us look at the numbers straight up. Based on the long-term track record of the S&P 500, a realistic average annual return for a diversified index fund lands somewhere between 7% and 10%. To keep things grounded and avoid planning around best-case scenarios, we are going to use 8% for every example here. If you invest $50 per month at 8% annually, here is what happens. After 5 years, roughly $3,600. After 10 years, around $9,200. After 20 years, approximately $29,500. After 30 years of never missing a single contribution, $74,500. Let us be straight with each other about that number. $74,000 is real money. It is not nothing. But it is also not enough to retire on for most Americans in most cities. It does not even cover 2 years of average living expenses. After 30 full years of doing everything right, you are still coming up short. Now let us look at $200 per month. Same 8% return, same time frames. After 5 years, roughly $14,700. After 10 years, around $36,800. After 20 years, approximately $117,800. After 30 years, close to $298,000. Now we are talking. Nearly $300,000 from $200 a month. That is something you can actually build a retirement around when you combine it with other savings. Let us go one step further. $400 per month. After 5 years, around $29,300. After 10 years, roughly $73,700. After 20 years, about $235,600. After 30 years, close to $595,000. Nearly $600,000 from $400 a month. Same 8% return every single time. Same 30-year window every single time. The only thing that changed was the monthly amount going in. Read that again. The rate stayed the same. The time stayed the same. The only variable was the monthly contribution. And the outcome went from $74,000 all the way to $595,000. That is an 8 times difference from an 8 times increase in what went in each month. In the early years, the interest rate barely matters. Your monthly contribution is doing all the heavy lifting for the first decade or more. Compounding only becomes the main driver once your balance grows large enough to generate returns that are worth talking about. Think about it this way. 8% of $10,000 is $800. 8% of $100,000 is $8,000. Same percentage. But $8,000 actually changes things. $800 does not even cover 1 month of bills for most people. This is also why wealthy people seem to get richer without breaking a sweat. It is not some secret strategy. It is not insider access. It is simply size. Someone sitting on $500,000 invested at 7% earns $35,000 a year from returns alone without doing a single thing. Just because the balance is big enough for the percentage to actually mean something. Someone with $5,000 invested at that same 7% earns $350 a year. That does not cover a week of groceries for a family. The difference between those two people is not smarts or discipline. It is the size of what they are compounding on. So the real question is not, should I invest? The real question is, how do I build my balance large enough, fast enough, for compounding to start actually working in my favor? The answer comes down to 2 things. Part 1. Your monthly contributions matter way more than your returns early on. Let that sink in for a second. You could chase higher risk investments hoping to land 15% or 20% annual returns. But even if you actually pulled that off consistently, which very few people do, the math barely budges when your starting balance is still small. A 15% return on $3,000 is $450. But adding $450 more to your monthly contribution gets you to the exact same place without touching a single extra dollar of risk. This is the trap a lot of newer investors fall into. Their returns feel small, so they assume they need bigger returns. They start chasing. They jump into riskier stocks. They go heavy into crypto. They find speculative plays. They think if I could just hit 15% instead of 8%, everything would be different. Let us run the actual numbers. You are putting in $200 per month, and you somehow double your return from 8% to 16%. Over 10 years, at 8% you would have around $36,800. At 16% you would have roughly $52,200, about $15,000 more. Sounds pretty good, right? But hitting 16% consistently means taking on serious risk. The kind that can wipe out 40% or 50% of your portfolio in one bad year. And when that happens, most people panic and sell at exactly the wrong time. They lock in their losses and end up worse off than if they had just stayed in a basic index fund the whole time. Now, what if instead of chasing a higher rate, you simply bumped your monthly contribution from $200 to $350? At 8%, $350 per month over 10 years comes out to roughly $64,000. More money, less risk, same time frame. The contribution bump beats the return-chasing strategy every single time when your balance is still building. This is the core takeaway. In the early years, you are your own best investment. Focusing on earning more, cutting back on spending, and growing that monthly contribution will beat risky investment strategies almost every time. Not because high returns are bad. They are great when they actually happen. But because at small balances, what goes in each month runs the show. not the rate. Part 2. The point where compounding starts feeling real. So when exactly does things shift? When does compounding stop being something you read about and start being something you actually notice in your account? Based on real market data, that point tends to land somewhere between $100,000 and $150,000 in total invested assets. At $100,000 earning 8% annually, your investments are generating $8,000 per year in returns without you adding a single dollar. That works out to about $667 every month, coming in on its own. That is when people genuinely feel it. That is when the snowball stops being a saying and becomes something real you can watch happening. So the goal in your early years is not just to invest consistently, though that matters a lot. The deeper goal is to hit $100,000 as fast as realistically possible. Because that is the number where compounding goes from being quiet background noise to being a visible force pushing your wealth forward on its own. Here is what the path looks like at different monthly amounts. At $100 per month at 8%, after 10 years you would have roughly $18,400. Solid progress, but still a long way from the cutoff point. Compounding is not yet outrunning what you are putting in. Find a way to get to $500 per month, side hustle, cutting expenses, a raise, selling stuff you no longer use, and the 10-year number jumps to roughly $91,500. Now you can see the finish line from here. At $1,000 per month. After 10 years, you are sitting at around $184,000. You have crossed the cutoff. Compounding is now visibly doing the work every single month. There is something I want to walk through because it explains why early investing feels so frustrating and why later investing feels almost easy. I call it the contribution versus return split. At the very start, you are carrying almost all the weight yourself. Say your account earns $40 from returns in a month and you contributed $200 that same month. Your account grew by $240 total. You personally drove 83% of that growth. Your investments drove 17%. You are basically just saving money with a small bonus on top. But watch what changes as your balance grows. At $50,000 invested, 8% annually generates about $333 per month from returns alone. If you are still putting in $200 per month, the split is now roughly 60-40. You and your money are becoming equal partners. At $100,000, returns generate about $667 per month. With a $200 monthly contribution, your portfolio is now doing more than 3 times the work you are doing. At $200,000, returns at 8% produce roughly $1,333 per month. Your investments are doing 6 or 7 times more work than you are every single month. This is the phase everyone is grinding toward. But you only get there by pushing through the early stage, the stage where you are doing 83% of the work and your money is only doing 17%. That early grind is not a sign something is wrong. It is just phase 1 of a 2-phase process. Phase 1 versus phase 2. Building wealth through compounding has 2 completely different stages, and almost nobody talks about them as separate things with different rules. Phase 1 is the contribution phase. You are the engine. Your income, your savings rate, your ability to cut unnecessary spending and put more money to work, this is what drives everything in phase 1. The return rate is almost beside the point because the numbers are still too small for it to swing things much. Here is proof. If you are putting in $300 a month and your return improves from 8 to 9%, the difference over 10 years is less than $5,000. Barely noticeable. But bump your monthly contribution from $300 to $500 and that same 10-year window produces around $15,000 more. Your behavior drives phase 1. Not the market. Phase 2 is the compounding phase. This is where the math starts running ahead of you, where your returns outpace your contributions, where people say things like my portfolio made more money last year than my actual paycheck. It feels like a switch flipped. It is not a switch. It is a threshold. and it typically shows up somewhere between $100,000 and $200,000. The fastest way to get to phase 2 is not finding a hotter investment. It is growing your monthly contribution as aggressively as your life allows. Here is the mindset shift that ties all of this together. Stop thinking of compound interest as the strategy. Compound interest is the reward. The strategy is getting more money into your account every single month. Compounding is what shows up after you have already done the hard part. Let us land this. Compound interest is one of the most powerful tools available to everyday Americans. But it needs a minimum scale to actually work in a way you can feel. Below roughly $100,000 to $150,000 in total invested assets, your returns are too small to register in real life. That is not failure. That is just math. The move is not to panic. The move is not to chase riskier investments hoping for a bigger percentage. The data is clear. Growing your monthly contribution beats chasing a higher return rate almost every time when you are starting from small amounts. Here is the one thing to do right now. Look at your current monthly contribution. Ask yourself honestly, what would it take to bump it up by just $50 this month? Not some crazy number, just $50 more. Because that extra $50 per month over 20 years at 8% adds up to roughly $29,400 from one small decision. Ask that same question next month and the month after. Grow the number little by little the same way compounding grows your balance. Small, consistent increases over time turn into something you genuinely cannot picture from where you are standing right now. Set up an automatic transfer on payday. Take care of your future self first and let everything else work around what is left. And whenever your income goes up, a raise, a better gig, a side hustle taking off, do not let your lifestyle eat all of it. Take half of every income bump and send it straight into investments. Your day-to-day life still gets better. Your future still gets built. Both happen at the same time. You do not need to get rich fast. You just need to stay in the game long enough for the math to work in your favor. Trust the process. Stay consistent. Be patient with yourself, because every dollar you put in today is doing quiet, invisible work that you cannot fully see yet. But it is absolutely working. If this changed how you think about your money, go ahead and subscribe. New videos just like this are dropping every single week. And just to be upfront, I am not a financial advisor. Everything here is for educational purposes only. Your results will always come down to your own decisions and your own actions.